Story 1. I was recently compared to Shrek, so yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Story 2. About a 3. Give me 2 hours, and I think I can increase it to 5 if you do not get too close. Story 3. It depends on the lighting, angle, and how much self-love I remember to have that day. Story 4. There are 2 Facebook groups I requested to join just to see which would accept me. A group where only ugly people can join and a group where only pretty people can join. I was accepted into both. But I've been told I'm funny and have a good personality. Story 5. I am a chiseled Adonis, unlike all of you fat losers posting on Reddit. Story 6. Not very. All my facial features come together in a way that they harmonize in their individual ugliness and form an even greater combined ugliness. Story 7. Nobody has ever told me I was attractive. They have had several decades of opportunity. That said, people do not point and stare. So maybe 3 out of 10. Story 8. By the way, my dog reacts when I get home. 11 out of 10. Story 9. 7 out of 10, maybe 8 as I get older and my brain finishes cooking. Story 10. Well below average. Like 3 out of 10. I definitely got hit with the ugly stick. A face only a mother could love was a lie because not even she likes how I look. Lockdown was a blessing because I could go outside wearing a mask and avoid being laughed at or called ugly every day. You know Ugly Bob from South Park? Yeah, that, but even a bag does not help. I could probably go on, but I won't. You might get a glimpse of the monster behind the monitor. Story 11. Some people will find you ugly, others will find you drop-dead gorgeous. So why not 10 out of 10? Story 12. I have body dysmorphia, I guess. Sometimes I feel like the most beautiful person in the room, and sometimes I feel like shit. There is nothing in between. Story 13. 6 out of 10. A huge increase since I grew a beard. It hides a lot of my face. Story 14. 3 to 4 out of 10. I do not have a good voice. I have a lisp. My heart is still big despite the parts that have been hurt, and people still find me attractive, so I guess I am just not attractive in the way I wish I were. Story 15. I do not know. In freshman year, some guys rated me 4 out of 10, but I got a junior year glow up, and while I am not mind-blowing, guys kind of talk to me now. Still, my perception of how I look will probably always be stuck in the past. Story 16. 6 out of 10. I am insecure about my teeth and a mole on my face. Story 17. In the mirror, 9 out of 10. In photos, send the gargoyle back to hell. Story 18. I am so ugly I look like the before picture for anything. Story 19. People stare at me, but I do not know if I am that repulsive or good-looking. Story 20. My answer is no. I don't have to think to know I'm not. Story 21. I am about as attractive as a swamp witch, but I make people laugh and I bake, so there is that. Story 22. If being sexy was a crime, I'd be in jail for tax evasion. Story 23. I am tall, dark, and handsome. According to my mom, I am at least 66% attractive. Story 24. He fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down. Story 25. 6 out of 10, but could be 8 out of 10 if I wasn't built like a fucking twig. Story 26. 7 out of 10. I like how I look, and other people's opinions of me are none of my business. Story 27. Attractive enough that I don't need approval from others. Story 28. I'm getting pretty chubby. I've been injured for half a year, but I am tall and moderately charismatic, so I'm probably a 6 out of 10. Story 29. Based on the feedback I received, it must be between 3 and 8. Story 30. A 3. Maybe a 5 on a good day if I'm being kind to myself. Story 31. Physically, I'm okay with makeup, but my personality is a 10. Story 32. I think I'm about a 6, maybe 6.5 to 7 with makeup. I can't be too bad looking. I get hit on and pursued a lot. Story 33. I would be about an 8.5 if viewed from my left side and under poor lighting. Story 34. Probably a strong 2 if you can handle sarcasm 95% of the time. Story 35. Some days I feel ugly. Other days I feel beautiful. Most days I do not care. I would say 3 out of 10. Story 36. You know when someone jokes with a friend by telling a random ugly person that their friend likes them? That happened to me. I was the random person. Story 37. Height and muscle tone put me above average. Body dysmorphia puts me below average. Story 38. It depends what I'm wearing and whether I have makeup on. On a typical t-shirt and jeans day with no makeup, I'm no higher than a 4 out of 10. With a put-together outfit and a full face of makeup, I might be close to an 8. I have a fairly alternative style, which makes me very attractive to some people and very unattractive to others. Older women seem to love the way I look, which is intriguing. Story 39. Many times I have been told I am either a 7 or an 8, but to my wife I am a 10, and that is all that matters. Story 40. I would say average, but I have dated some stunning people, so maybe I am lowballing myself. Story 41. No one has ever asked, how are you still single? And I don't remember ever receiving a single compliment about my looks. Story 42. People tell me I am beautiful and that I should model or be an actress, but my self-perception depends on the day and how clear my skin is. We are our own worst critics, so I have to remember that. Story 43. I always considered myself average, but apparently I am a solid 9 or 10. Story 44. I am attractive, probably an 8 out of 10 for my face, but I am overweight, so I think I average out at around a 6 out of 10. I am often told I am beautiful but not sexy, which is fair. Story 45. I tried to join the support group for ugly people on Facebook, but I was told I am way too ugly for this group. Story 46. 6 out of 10, but that is my own opinion. Now that I am pregnant, I feel like 3 out of 10, laughing out loud. Story 47. I would say I am average. Handsome enough to attract a woman, but wise enough to know a model will leave when I cannot spoil her anymore. Story 48. 8 out of 10. Not famous and with a slightly dad bod build, but attractive enough to have a gorgeous fiancé who loves my tummy. Story 49. 7 out of 10 to some, probably 5 out of 10 to others, 8 out of 10 on a really good day. Story 50. Certainly not what would make me a potential date for a girl for various reasons. I guess I am pretty much average. Story 51. I am attractive enough that people are hyper-aware of my presence. They notice me, compliment me, smile, and hold eye contact. I will give myself a 7 on a 10-point scale. Story 52. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Isn't that how the saying goes? Story 53. It depends on the lighting and angle. Sometimes 2 out of 10, sometimes 8 out of 10. Story 54. For, I guess, I am short, overweight, bald, and gradually losing muscle mass as I age, but my face is inoffensive. My wife thinks I am a 9, so I will say 9. Story 55. Most people underestimate themselves because we see our own flaws in ultra-high definition while everyone else sees the soft-focus version. I have noticed that confidence matters far more than perfect features. Someone who carries themselves well automatically becomes more magnetic. What do you think has more impact on attraction? How you actually look or how you feel about your appearance? Story 56. I grew up with low self-esteem but have spent many years working on it. I think I have really grown into my looks. I would call myself an 8, maybe a 9, though objectively an 8 depending on who you ask. Story 57. I was told I was a 5 when I was 25. With age and weight, I guess I'm a 3 or 4 now. It doesn't matter. As a black woman over 40, I'm basically invisible. Story 58. I am okay, not ugly. Sometimes people call me beautiful or pretty. I have an Italian look, so you have to be into that. I might be someone's type, but I don't think I'm that great. Story 59. I am a mamasaurus. I lost my pink and I guess I am just 4 or 5 now. My husband thinks otherwise, though. He still thinks that I am a solid 10. Story 60. The girl I liked in high school said I looked like Mr. Bean. The girl I liked in college said I looked like Gru from Despicable Me. I am the ugliest person I know. Story 61. My guess is 6. I have dated perfect 10s, but I have been turned down by many people. I cannot be unattractive, but I also cannot be too attractive. Story 62. I don't know, but I'm single. so that should mean something. I get hit on at clubs by different people, but I can't seem to find a quality partner who wants more than just sex. Story 63. My nicknames are Gorilla and the Thing in my friend group, so you can guess how gorgeous I am. Story 64. Physically, I'm low to mid. I think I'm a nice guy, so maybe that will factor in. I hold doors, defer to most people, walk on the side of the sidewalk nearest the road, enjoy being humorous, and actively listen. Story 65. Just an average-looking nana you would not look twice at in a crowd. Story 66. I am feeling a high 4. On the higher end, a low 6. Story 67. I have always dated women rated 8 and above, and my wife is a 10 in my opinion. So maybe I'm an 8. Story 68. I think we have good and bad days ranging from 10 out of 10 to 5 out of 10. Story 69. I think my body is okay. My face ruins it, though. I'm about a 2, maybe a 3 on a good day. Story 70. Most people say I look like my dad. I wouldn't know, but what I do know is that my dad is very handsome. Story 71. My husband gave me 100 out of 10, while I think I'm an 8 out of 10. I gave him 1,000 out of 10 because how dare he try to be cuter than me, but he thinks he's a 5 or 6 out of 10. We've both been told we're conventionally attractive, but we grew up thinking we were ugly ducklings. So we have a wicked sense of humor and quirky personalities. Story 72. 7 out of 10, but not in a hegemonic way. I don't know. Maybe 8 if I were fit too. Story 73. I like how I look, but I have a small gap and a gray streak at the front of my hair, so I'm not considered highly attractive. I'm a niche kind of pretty. Story 74. I am probably a 2 or 3 out of 10. I never receive compliments or get flirted with, so I am definitely below average. Story 75. I do not find myself very pretty, but many people tell me I am. Story 76. Somewhere between, people smile at me out of politeness, and I once got hit on by someone legally required to wear glasses. Story 77. Well, I was talking to a Reddit user. We really hit it off. She asked me to share my pictures. Then, without responding, she immediately blocked me without sharing her pictures. So I would say I look pretty good. She knew she had no chance with me. Story 78. My parents and grandparents are the only people who have ever called me handsome. Story 79. 6 or 7 out of 10. While my body is not perfect because I am plus-sized and have my father's manly walk, I think my face makes up for it. I see it when I look in the mirror, and I often receive compliments from people in public. Story 80. For my age group, I'm doing pretty well. Compared to people who have youth on their side, I'm not doing so well. Story 81. I'm about a 3 out of 10. I have a fairly handsome face and I'm very tall, which many women find attractive. However, I'm overweight and losing my hair. Story 82. Most people rate themselves 7 out of 10, but I think I am a 7. Story 83. I would describe my level of attractiveness as your Saturday night oops. Story 84. I would say a solid 9, based on my humor, sweet talk, and face card. Story 85. 5 out of 10, and I'm glad for it. It took me 40 years to figure out that being right in the middle is best. Story 86. 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. Of course, women are peculiar. I'm sure I'm a 5 out of 10 for some and a 10 out of 10 for others. I figure I must be attractive enough, since I've dated some drop-dead gorgeous women. I've been told I make them nervous. After a while, you know you have something going on. I look like Tom Ellis, so I'm fairly lucky in the looks department, but I do not have any particularly notable features. I used to have dimples. Story 87. My husband tells me I am beautiful even when I know I am not, at least in that moment. I am maybe about a 5 or 6 for my age. My attractiveness is typical for my age. Story 88. I rate myself 8 out of 10. I am a slightly underweight gay man in my early 20s with long, thick, curly hair. I do not care much about my appearance anymore. I used to be quite vain. I have had partners consistently since I was 19. I wanted to challenge the stereotype that Reddit users are all 0 out of 10. There is someone for everyone, and working out and developing a personal style can add at least 2 points. Story 89. 6. It depends on what you like, though. I like myself and my partner likes me, so what more do I need? Story 90. Repellent, like an inside-out black hole, unfortunately. Edit. I suddenly remembered that I cannot say this on Reddit, or people will think I am an involuntary celibate. I promise I love women. Story 91. Good-looking enough to make people think twice about their standards. Story 92. I have a peculiar look. I find everyone beautiful. I don't have a specific type when it comes to men. I prefer a man who is God-fearing and kind. There has to be chemistry. Story 93. 9 times out of 10, I have awkward sexual tension with almost anyone of the opposite sex, and it sucks. Story 94. Solid 7. It depends on the country I am in. Germans and Brits like me. Americans, not so much. Story 95. I would rate myself between 4 and 6 out of 10. I am a male, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, and 18 years old. I do not have fluffy hair or a defined jawline, which many people consider attractive for my age group. I cannot pull off a hot look, but I can present a professional and distinguished appearance. Story 96. I would say a solid 7. I am a man who is on the shorter side, but I am in shape and I try to dress well and take care of myself. I have never really had trouble with confidence, relationships, or finding people attracted to me, but I am definitely not everyone's cup of tea, and that is all right. Story 97. For a redhead, I think I'm a 7. I'm old and still get hit on, so that boosts my confidence a bit. Story 98. When I was younger, I felt like a 9. Now I feel like a 7. I'm worried I might be perceived by others as a 4.5. Story 99. Maybe 6.5. I know I am not breathtaking, but I have qualities that charm people. Story 100. On a scale, I would say 4 at best, more likely a 2. Appearance-wise, I am not very impressive, maybe just below average. I should commit to a specific look and take better care of my skin. I have red hair, which some people like. An older black woman called me a unicorn because redheads are rare and she always enjoys giving hugs. I love that woman dearly. We must protect older women. Story 101. I would say a 6 with 8 potential. I just need to get my act together. Story 102. Given the profile name, I assume a 10 out of 10 earns your direct message. Nice hook, I must say. Story 103. I want to say I am at least a 5, but I think other people would say lower. Story 104. You are disgusting for dropping and deleting my wife's calls and messages to me. To everyone reading this, you are the most disgusting person in the world. Story 105. 4 out of 10. Once I get back to a healthy weight, I should be at least a 5. Story 106. I think I'm an 8, but an acquired 8. I'm a big guy and I've been called a blonde stoic, the chief from How to Train Your Dragon, a few times. Story 107. I still have all my teeth, so 10 out of 10 by 18th century standards, and probably 3.5 out of 10 by modern standards. Story 108. Laughing out loud, I married a 10 who does not want to sleep with me, so I cannot imagine it was for my looks. Story 109. I am a 4, but I know I have the potential to be an 8 if I were not so lazy. Story 110. It is weird because I am definitely a 3 or 4, but when someone likes me it always becomes obsessive, so I do not know. Story 111. It depends on the day, sometimes the hour. On average, I feel about a 6 out of 10. I know I am pretty. Some days one picture makes me feel amazing, like a 12 out of 10, but other times I look in the mirror and do not recognize myself and I hate how I look. Some days I cannot even look at myself. I struggle with my mental health, but I have an amazing man who takes care of me and makes me feel loved, and that is what matters. Story 112. A 9 in the mirror, a 7 in selfies, a 5.5 in candids, a 3 around women I find attractive. Solid 6.5 across the board. Story 113. I am a solid 3.5 for on a good day. I still have a really active dating life, so I guess that is fine. Story 114. I look in the mirror and see a 5 out of 10. When I go outside, I am treated like a 3 out of 10. I would say 4 out of 10 is my ceiling. Story 115. I must be quite attractive because I met a gorgeous, intelligent, and kind woman who agreed to marry me and to have our children. She put my insecurities to rest. Story 116. Some days I'm like, damn, I'm fine, and other days I feel like I'm an ugly bitch. What I consistently say about myself is that my face card never declines, but my body is not tea. I always look as good as my hair. Story 117. 8 out of 10. Although depressive episodes lead to poor hygiene, would that be a 3 out of 10? Story 118. I'm about a 5 out of 10, somewhere in the middle. I'm chubby and don't like my jawline or big cheeks. I have vivid blue eyes and dimples, so I'd say I'm cute or pretty, though I wouldn't call myself beautiful or hot. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and my partner likes how I look, which is good enough for me. Story 119. When I was in my 20s, I was told 8 or 9. In my 30s, I had 7. In my 40s, I had 3. In my 50s, I had 4. In my 60s, I had 5. I did not age well. Story 120. Probably a 4 out of 10, maybe a 6 on a good day. Also, my ribcage and sternum are extremely ugly. Story 121. People compare me to gorillas. That means I'm fucking gorgeous. Story 122. 5 out of 10, but add my personality and it becomes a 3. Story 123. I would say a good 8 out of 10. People have different opinions, but in real life that is the consensus in my group. Story 124. Physically? Not very. Personality-wise? Probably even worse. Story 125. I would say 6 or 7 on a good day. That is when I picture my celebrity crushes. Then I remember a person I saw hop out of a pickup truck who had no legs, not an amputee, but a torso with feet. It was an interesting choice of vehicle. After watching the last episode of My 600-Pound Life, I thought we needed a larger scale. Story 126. 5 out of 10. Having given up on relationships helps, so it becomes irrelevant. Story 127. I am an average-looking person. The only thing that draws people to me is my height. Story 128. My neighbor came to my home and sat on my bed. She wanted to own me, so I put her out. There are people around me who say I should be a model. 8 out of 10 say so. Story 129. I am in better shape than 95% of other women, which is not really a point of pride because most people do not work out regularly or eat well. My face is average without makeup and perhaps slightly above average with it. Everyone looks 100 times better with makeup. Laughing out loud. Story 130. I get told I'm hot all the time, but I have never earned a lover's loyalty. They always cheat with men I find unattractive, so I must be pretty ugly. Story 131. I estimate a realistic 6.5 out of 10. It is slightly above average, but not going to turn any heads. Story 132. I'm like a solid 7, but my partner thinks I'm a 10, and that is the only opinion I care about on the subject. Story 133. A solid 2.5 to the world. A 10 to my husband. Laughing out loud. I do not know what he sees. Story 134. I would probably give myself a 6.5 on a good day and a solid 1.5 on the others. Story 135. Very average. 5 out of 10, but I am a middle-aged woman, so I suppose that was expected. Story 136. I wouldn't call myself attractive, but, attractiveness is subjective. Story 137. A face for radio without the voice, the worst combination. I would give it 1 out of 10, and it is not just in my head. I have had amazing relationships with people on the phone or the internet, and then they completely cut contact once we met and they saw me. It is honestly crushing and hard to wrap my head around. No one should have to live like that. I say 1 instead of 0 because I have had 2 successful romantic relationships. I will be forever grateful to those people for valuing my personality over looks. I am sad all the time because of it. Story 138. I'm a fairly average 6.5 out of 10. No one has ever called me ugly or insulted my looks to my face. I receive compliments and get hit on by older men, which I find unpleasant, and by boys my age, but I'm not Megan Fox. I'm okay looking. Story 139. I could attract girls when I was young, but that was before I started speaking. My voice was often compared to cartoon characters. Now I'm just a balloon with that voice. At least the kids love me. Story 140. I would rate myself 6 out of 10 for women. I have been approached romantically by gay men occasionally, so I think I am 7 out of 10 to them. Story 141. When I was younger, I was 8 out of 10. After years of office work and no exercise, I am 4 out of 10. Story 142. Definitely about 4, but on the bright side, I have a poor personality. Story 143. I always thought I was average looking, but I started getting significantly more attention in the last couple of years after I decided to grow a beard. I would rate myself around 4 or 5 out of 10. Story 144. My family tells me I'm attractive, but I don't see it at all. Seeing the number of girls showing interest in me, I think I must be the right one. Story 145. A bit less than when I was 22, but still above average, and I present myself in a way that veers into hot territory for many people. Story 146. Before giving birth last year, she was pretty attractive. Now yikes. Story 147. I'd say 7 out of 10 by my country's beauty standards, but I wouldn't consider myself photogenic. Story 148. Solid 6. Am I a supermodel? No. Am I relatively traditionally attractive? Yeah, I would say so. Story 149. 6 out of 10. I'm insecure about my self-image and weight because I weigh 380 pounds, but only a few people have told me I have a nice-looking face. Story 150. I was told many times that I looked like Tom Cruise from about age 23 to 35, probably during his Rain Man or Days of Thunder era, but I later grew dowier and my face became rounder. Now in my early 40s, I haven't heard that comparison in years. Story 151. Sometimes I catch my reflection in a window and think, I look kind of nice in a non-traditional way. Story 152. Physically, I would say I am a solid 8. If you add in my income and professional status, I am a 9. Story 153. I've been having a run of pretty privilege recently, so I'm guessing at least an 8. Story 154. I am old and get hit on by younger women. I am going to say 1, but some women think I have money. Story 155. Apparently it was enough for random strangers at the grocery store to want to talk to me. Story 156. Varies. Sometimes hotter than a $2 pistol. Sometimes an invisible basic dude. Story 157. I'm a 6, but on a good day with enough preparation I can be an 8. Story 158. I say I am a 6. My wife says I am a 10. Let us call it 7 because she is blinded by love. Story 159. In terms of appearance, I am a 5. Once I lose the rest of my weight and become the muscular woman I was always meant to be, I will be a 6.5, maybe a 7 if I also gain confidence. Story 160. I am 5'7", light-skinned and mixed race. I weigh 109 pounds and I am 25 years old. I have been bullied and emotionally neglected my whole life. I am still a virgin. I do not have much of a life besides playing video games and trading the market. I still live at home and make $55,000 a year. In short, I feel unattractive and believe women find me unappealing. Story 161. I'd say a 7. Back in the day, maybe an 8. Now I've gained a bit of weight and started losing hair, so I'm slowly declining. Anxiety is a real bitch. Story 162. The face is maybe 4 to 5 out of 10. The nose is large. The teeth are crooked and not white. The head is large. The beard is decent. The body is probably 2 to 3 out of 10. There is not enough muscle, too much fat, and many moles. Story 163. I am well-rounded and proud of it in my own way. Let my actions, outreach, and empathy be seen and known. Story 164. Somewhere between the handsomest person and the ugliest rat alive. Story 165. I am less attractive than I was 20 years ago, but my wife disagrees with me. She is beautiful, she loves me, and she thinks I am sexy, so that is really all that matters to me. Story 166. On a conventional attractiveness scale, I would be about 3 out of 10. If you are open-minded, I do not know, maybe 5 to 6 out of 10 on a decent day. I am not a model. What can you do? Story 167. I don't know, like a 5, totally average. If I lost 100 pounds, maybe a 6 or 7. I am turning 40 soon and my hair is thinning, but I have a fairly symmetrical face and can grow a decent beard. I am tall with broad shoulders, so I have that going for me. I also have very toned fat guy calves, and I am pretty confident in those. I do not turn any heads, but I am not offensive looking. My wife seems to like me, so that is all I need. Story 168. According to random women who engaged with me, 2 out of 10. According to my former girlfriend, 8 out of 10. Story 169. A solid 2 out of 10. I'm not the worst guy in existence because I take showers and wear deodorant. But I know I'm not remotely attractive. My friends say I'm more like a 4, just below average, but I fail to see it. Story 170. I look great in my snow-white mirror, but when I catch a glimpse of myself in a store mirror, I feel sorry for the ugly woman dressed like me. Story 171. Does that really matter? I'm trying to be a better person, and I have a big heart. Those things really matter. Story 172. It depends on the city. I am a 3 in some and a solid 5 in another. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.